Hello again, everyone. Gavin here. Today we're going to be reviewing Minibit by Audiothing, a fantastic chiptune plugin that has so many extra features thrown into it that you could do a heck of a lot more than just chiptune with it. Chiptune being, old school video game music if you're not familiar. So, we're going to dive right into it. The plugin has a single oscillator to start, which begins in square wave mode. If you click on the waveform, there are a lot of oscillators you can choose from. Let's start with the old school NES triangle sound. Classic. If you click on this and go to pulse 25, if you haven't heard that sound before, you've been living under a rock. Pulse 12.5. Same there. You've been living under two rocks if you haven't heard that one. Now, those are the four main ones that you hear frequently in old school game music, but a lot of extra waveforms in here that you don't usually see, such as a saw, a sine wave, a voice waveform, which kind of at the lower octaves, you can hear why it's called a voice. It sounds almost like a formant. Coupled with a filter, that might be some fun to play with right there. There's an E-piano for all y'all jazz fanatics out there. Based on my knowledge of jazz chords, you can tell I don't play much jazz. There's a guitar. So realistic. I suppose in some way it might be, but that's old school game stuff. There's a bell. There is a string. There is a transistor. Drop the octave a little. There is a duck waveform, a duck face waveform. Sounds kind of like a duck quacking. If you go to matrix, nice and harsh. There's a motor. Lives up to its name. There is noise. Now, there's three different white noises that it produces, all of which are affected by pitch. If you go to noise 2, and noise 3, now, one thing you may have noticed with a lot of these waveforms is that the higher the pitch, the faster the sort of buzzing sound they produce. It's because these are all sample-based oscillators, and especially the noise waveforms. So, like, you can hear it especially on 2. So the higher the pitch, the faster the sample plays, just as if you were working with a standard sampler. Now, one of the fun things about this, after all those different oscillators, you also have 8 custom oscillators that you can choose. So the nice thing, normally this thing is completely flat. I had been working with this a little bit. You can clear it by pressing this button. So one thing that's kind of fun, clicking on the editor right here, you can draw just about any shape you want with all manner of harmonics. So let's just make, I don't know what that's going to sound like. You just click outside of the box to end it, and kind of like that, actually. Got a nice little sort of buzzy sound to it. And you can do that with with 8 different waveforms, which is just awesome. Make another custom. You can click on this to automatically generate a triangle, a square, a saw, or produce your own completely random stuff. Now this may produce noise. Let's see what it sounds like. I like that one. In fact, I'm going to save that preset later. So, all these different features all packed into one thing. That's just the waveforms. We haven't even touched anything else yet. There's also a secondary sub-oscillator. This is always in a square wave, so you can't change that. What you can change about it is whether or not it is dropped 2 octaves. Let's turn the thing on. You can adjust the volume manually with this. So right now it's 2 octaves below the main note. One octave below the main note. Or make it identical with an identical octave with the main note. You can sort of hear it boosts the volume and does some interesting little phasey things with it if you do that. For now, let's go ahead and put it back on the 2 octaves down. I find that fun. So, you may have noticed that this section has a lot to do with the main waveform itself. There is a fine tuning, a tuning, which is the coarse tuning. This can be edited, as you could hear, separately from the sub-oscillator. We'll turn that off for now. There's a glide section, which makes it so that the note glides. So lots of fun stuff with that. You can, right now I'm playing it in poly mode. If I turn poly mode off, then you can go from note to note while holding just one, play with that a little bit for a nice little solo lead. One thing that's kind of fun is that the glide actually interacts with the tuning of the plugin. So for instance, if I turn my tuning down and start playing with the glide, that's with the tuning pitched down. If I pitch it up, lots of fun stuff you can do with that. You can double click on any of these parameters to reset them entirely. Put it back on poly mode for now. Let's go ahead and get into some of the envelope stuff. So there's basic volume envelope. So ADSR controls, pretty standard. Just the attack, release. This is where you can get a lot more of the magic with each of the different sounds. So for instance, if I go to the bell, earlier it sounded like this. Kind of obnoxious. Add some decay and some release. Especially the release. No more decay on that. A little bit more playful. Conversely, if you go to the string, it didn't sound very stringy earlier. But what we can do, turn that sustain up, long release, long attack, and suddenly the string makes a little bit more sense, albeit from a lo-fi perspective. Now, there's also a separate envelope that's hidden. If you click on this little section that says volume, there's a pitch envelope. And this is where a lot of the really fun stuff with this plugin happens. So if I turn up the amount and then adjust my attack, for instance, so without the attack, turn the attack up. One thing I particularly like is having a short attack, like maybe 5%, and a short decay. In fact, let's make that attack even shorter. It's particularly fun on a square wave. Now, one thing that's fun Going back to the volume, if you make it more of a volume decay, and maybe a little more, make that nice and short so it's kind of a punchy sound. Then if I go back to the pitch, and right there, I want it to be a little bit more noticeable, not much. Now if I pitch this way the heck down, I just made a lo-fi kick. And you can adjust the amount to kind of adjust how high the pitch jumps with your pitch envelope here. You can even invert it. I prefer having it the other way personally, shifting down. So lots of fantastic sound design options just with playing with the pitch envelopes. You can produce all sorts of lo-fi percussion with this thing, which is just awesome. There's an LFO section, which we'll get into in a moment. It'll make a little more sense if we go over a couple of the other sections first. So we got our filter cutoff down here. There's a low pass filter. And some resonance. There's a high pass if you click here. So only 2 filters, but for most purposes, that's already more than you'd usually find in a chiptune plugin. So there's also a delay section, which I personally find quite useful. You turn the wet volume up. The wet just determines how loud the delay itself is. Feedback, how long the delay lasts, how many echoes essentially. If you put it all the way up, it goes forever. So turn that down. Now, one thing that's particularly fun, if you turn, there's also a time section, which changes the pitch of the delay as you adjust the time. One of my more favorite things you can do with this, turn the time up pretty high so it's really short. Little. Ooh, that is kind of sharp. Too much feedback, as you notice, can be painful. You can sort of make an almost sort of chorus sound effect here with a fairly short time and a little bit of feedback. Changes a lot of the harmonics of the sound itself. You can sync the delay just by clicking on this so that when you change the time, instead of seeing a frequency, you see actual kind of time signatures. There is a bit crusher to the right. So adjusting the downsampling is where you really hear that happen. Oh, turn the delay off. Also, you can decrease the amount of bits from 16 all the way down to 2, which oftentimes at 2, you might not hear much of a sound. I see with some of the bit crushing, you need to have at least 3 bits to be able to hear anything. So there's also the last main section of the plugin is the LFO section. So this can be set to a variety of parameters. You, like the other different sections of the plugin, you adjust the amount to turn it on. So it starts off by adjusting your pitch. Let me improve that a little. Can't really hear it. Turn it up more. We see based on the wave right here that it's a sine wave. If I increase the rate, nice little spacey or spooky sounds. Turn the amount down so the pitch warbling is a little more mild. Gives you a little bit more ability to add movement to a sound. One thing that's particularly nice is if you automate this to where you hit a note and then have the pitch wobble enter afterwards. Just adds a lot more movement and character to the sound, makes it a little bit more melodic. You can sync the rate to the tempo of your project, kind of like how you could with the delay by clicking the little sync button up here. Now, you can change the waveform to a triangle. Sounds very similar to a sine, just a little sharper. Ramp up, which is an upward sloping saw. A ramp down, downward sloping saw. There's a square wave. There's also a sample and hold, which I don't know what the heck that does, but interesting effects can be made with that. More of a sound design tool, it sounds like. Now you can also change the destination target of the LFO. So right now it's set to pitch. You can set it to the volume. You can change the cutoff, and that's where the filter becomes useful. Now it responds to the actual settings you have on the filter, so the higher your cutoff, or the lower it is, the more you hear the change. So with a chiptune plugin, you can make a dubstep bass line, which is unexpected but pretty fun. You can also set it to the downsampling. Just adds a lot of crunch to the sound when you have the LFO on that. So that's all the main different features of the plugin. I personally like it a lot. Just this review video is half me showing you what the thing does and how to use it, and the other half is me just playing because it's a fun plugin to fiddle with. Like, the thing is fairly inexpensive. I think normally it's right about $30. I got it on sale. And to me, this thing, like, I think personally it should be more like 50 to 60 at least. Just, I feel like it's underpriced for what you're getting out of it. Like, to me, this thing just has so many neat features, and it's so cool to see how the envelope, the LFO, all the filter and delay modules and everything, even how the glide interacts with the tune. I love how all the different features interact with each other to turn this not only into a chiptune plugin, but a neat little sound design engine. So if you're looking for something that'll help you to be able to make not only chiptune style music, but also chiptune sound effects, this is exactly what you need. The only gripes I have, and they're more personal than anything, the filter, I would like if there were more filter options like a bandpass or a notch. I feel like the filter is a little kind of sluggish, almost unresponsive in a way, in that to really get a noticeable filter change, like here. Oh, upsample. No, wait, nope. There it is. Okay, turn that off. To really make that filter noticeable, I have to turn the resonance up pretty high. Whereas without it, it almost sounds more like it's just increasing and decreasing volume. But I would like it if you could adjust the slope of the actual filter. So right now, I think it's set to like a 12 dB dipole. I would love it if you could do a 24 dB slope or a 48 dB slope, so I could have more control over the filter's sound itself. Another thing that I would enjoy would be for this LFO section. Remember, I showed you all the little pitch effect where you increase it just a little. and increase it after sustaining the note. I would love it if this had the ability to sustain a note and have the pitch wobble come in after a predetermined time. Like there's a knob where you determine where the pitch wobble actually begins and it fades in and the like. Part of the reason why I would like to have that feature is because a free plugin, Magical 8-Bit Plugin 2, has that feature where you can determine when the pitch wobble begins. So really makes it very melodic. It's just that plugin doesn't have half as many features as this one does. So personally, I prefer this one. I have really enjoyed working with it. This is my first experience with Audiothing, and I really think that they did a great job on this plugin. I can tell they were trying not just to make a chiptune plugin, but something that is infinitely more usable for a variety of genres. So I'm impressed with it. I recommend buying it and trying it out, especially if you're into chiptune stuff or if you're just looking to dabble. This is not a bad one to start with at all. So if you enjoy the video, thank you very, very much for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you like. All of those things help me to be able to produce more content like this. So thank you very much if you've made it this far into the video. I hope you all have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.